So, as a triple marginalized threat, female, Black, and introvert, this is my world, right? But all introverts have something to say. We're smart people, we're intelligent people. We just process internally. So, for an introvert, speaking up isn't about ego. It's about making sure you're taking up space in rooms where you actually haven't always been welcomed, or your voice hasn't always been welcomed because it hasn't been heard. Right. So, you have to be a little bit more assertive, and you have to bring your expertise forward. You need to, those are power moves, because you're saying, like E.F. Hutton, when he speaks, he's, you want to get to that point, you want to get that reputation where when that person speaks, people go, if he's speaking or she's speaking, they've actually got something really impactful and powerful to say. We need to listen.
All right, Alicia. So Marshall Goldsmith's book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, it focuses on the things that people have to do kind of early to mid-career to advance, and how those things shift once you reach a certain level of success and you start maybe transitioning into leadership and those kind of things. And there are certain habits that you adopt in the first half that really don't work for you anymore as you try to continue to level up your career. He outlines 20 habits, but for marginalized groups, oftentimes those principles can't be applied in quite the same way, and it's very nuanced based on our experiences. And so I'm going to get into a couple of examples of habits that fit that profile, that fit that example. So one of those, the first one I want to talk about, is winning too much. And what Marshall says is that at a certain point, you need to stop trying to win every argument, have your idea be the winning idea, right? Don't try to win everything, dial it back a little bit, allow other people an opportunity to win, share input, or pick your spots a little bit more, right? So let's talk about that in the world of introverts,
Mm,
because introverts are often the ones that don't say enough,
yeah.
right? That they're not vocal enough. They kind of maybe disappear and fade out in the room. So if you're trying to elevate and excel as an introvert, you really have to push yourself to be vocal.
Yeah.
So how does this principle fit for someone who's an introvert?
So, as a triple marginalized threat, female, Black, and introvert, this is my world, right? But all introverts have something to say. We're smart people, we're intelligent people. We just process internally. So we're listening a lot to what's happening and being said in the room, and we're processing it. We aren't those quick-witted necessarily. Some of us are, but we aren't usually quick-witted, right? So for an introvert, speaking up isn't about ego. It's about making sure you're taking up space in rooms where you actually haven't always been welcomed, or your voice hasn't always been welcomed because it hasn't been heard, right? It's
Yeah.
not that they don't want to hear what you have to say, they just haven't heard it. So you have to be a little bit more assertive, and you have to bring your expertise forward. You need to select the moments where you're going to say something. And if you're speaking, you want to make sure you're adding clarity, you're asking questions that shift the room, you're addressing the elephants in the room, or you're calling out the blind spots, right? Those are power moves, because you're saying, like E.F. Hutton, when he speaks, you want to get to that point, you want to get that reputation where when that person speaks, people go, if he's speaking or she's speaking, they've actually got something really impactful and powerful to say. We need to listen.
Okay.
So it's not about controlling the room, but it's about shifting the room, because you do have something powerful to say.
Okay. And for introverts, we tend to not get in a situation where we're doing so much that we have to dial it back,
Right.
right? So that typically doesn't happen a whole lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I could see, not from a volume perspective, but maybe from a strategic direction perspective, if an introvert has excelled professionally to a point where you're in a position of influence,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you have the ear of a lot of people,
Right.
and your ideas or opinions could dominate the direction even without you dominating conversations,
Right.
right?
So as an introvert, right, you need to remember what it feels like to be that person in the room that hasn't yet reached that influence level.
Yeah.
And you need to bring everyone else along, right? Maybe you're the person in the room with all of this going on that says, you know, Jonathan, what do you think? Jonathan, what are you hearing? Right?
Yeah.
That small action
Yeah.
can be extremely powerful. It can make a huge impact on Jonathan, but it also, he may have something to say in the room that shifts the dynamic.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so stay empathetic, invite and pull people into the conversation, similar to what you would have appreciated as you were coming up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The key is remembering it taking up space is not overreaching, it's overdue.
Absolutely. Okay. I love that. I love that. Okay. So what would be a healthy win for an introvert who's normally dominated in meetings by alphas who are kind of dominating the conversation? What would be considered a healthy win in that situation for an introvert?
I think first and foremost, a healthy win would be getting a full thought out without interruption. Because we know if you're the quiet one and you start talking, people will often speak over you. The alphas will take over because they hear your train of thought. And that's what happens when people finish your thought and say what you were going to say. Doesn't that make you angry? It makes me angry. A win would be getting your full thought out without interruption. And you can say things like, I'm not finished,
Yeah.
in a very calm, grounded tone. A win is landing a clear point that shifts the room or posing the question that makes everybody pause,
Okay.
right? And then a healthy win is also reclaiming your airtime. If somebody does try to take it away, got to reclaim your airtime, hold your space, and make sure your contributions are actually landing and not being picked and taken over
Okay.
and then presented as someone else's idea. So again,
Okay.
it's about influence, it's not volume. It's just making sure you stand your ground and that you get your thoughts and your points across. That's a win.
So you just mentioned like one of the consequences of not speaking up as an introvert, which you said like something that one of your ideas being taken and presented as somebody else's idea, right? So that's a consequence. But
Yes.
sometimes it can be tough to get yourself in a space of speaking up in those meetings as an
Yeah.
introvert. Like it's hard to kind of get past it, but you find yourself in situations where somebody else said what you were going to say and you were like, oh, I should have just said it because you held it too long,
Yep.
right? Or you weren't confident or sure of yourself, so you didn't say anything, and then you asked your boss after, and you asked your question to your boss, and they were like, it was a great question, right?
Yeah.
How do you get past those barriers that introverts have to speaking up in settings where there's a lot of people or meetings where
Yeah.
there are maybe superiors?
Yeah. I once had an amazing coach, and she's still my coach to this day. And she used to make me put a rubber band around my wrist. And if I didn't pop myself at least 3 times during the meeting, it wasn't a win because every time I popped myself, I had to ask a question.
Hmm.
And I had a tracker, which I then had to report back to her. I had another coach who used to make me take those little Starlight Mints, and I could take 2 or 3 to a meeting and put them in front of me. Couldn't have a Starlight Mint until I asked a question.
Mm.
I love a good Starlight Mint, so she knew I was going to make an effort. Um, but it's literally it's a proactive, conscious action that you have to take. And you can't sit and wait for the perfect moment. You can't sit and wait that you have the perfect question. There's no such thing. If you really listen in these meetings, some of the things people say and the questions they ask, you're probably thinking to yourself, where'd that come from? That is not the smartest thing I've ever heard, right? So you can't be considered dumb or adding no value because you sit and listen to people say dumb things and not add value, and I am sure. So you just have to trust. And at some point, you'll have a couple of wins that will give you the confidence that you do add value and you will find your voice.
Okay. And the fear could be that you're going to say something so ridiculous that it damages your reputation. But could you possibly do more damage to your personal brand by being too quiet all the time?
Or not saying anything.
Yeah.
You want to show people how you think. So think about your questions as an opportunity to show people what's going through your head and how
Yeah.
you are evaluating the situation in the conversation versus asking a question to look smart.
Yeah.
You just want them to see how you think.
Okay. And you can come across as disengaged too, if you're quiet and you're not saying anything on a consistent basis.
Right.
People kind of question how much you're committed or dialed into what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You and asking questions again, you don't have to say the statement that's going to completely shift everything, but
Yeah.
asking the right question shows people that you were listening, that you have been thinking about what's been said, and that you are engaged, right? Those are those, again, power moves. I call them power moves. You
Okay.
don't have to be the loudest person in the room, but you need
Okay.
to be the person that can shift the room when appropriate.
Okay. So kind of take the pressure off yourself and just participate, value above volume.
Yep, value upon volume. I love it.